Hey there. So I hope that this is recording and that I'm coming up okay in the video. Um, but I wanted to quick come talk to you guys about something that's been on my mind, and it's the topic of grief and mourning the loss of a loved one. Um, and I know it sounds like a pretty grim topic. Um, but I feel like it's something that, one, not many people talk about, and two, so many people grieve and mourn in their own ways. There's really no cookie cutter way to grieve, and I'm no counselor. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist in any capacity, um, but I am a person who has lost, who has suffered loss, and who um, mourns continually. I feel um, the loss of a parent, um, which is a very emotional thing. I would imagine that anyone else who has suffered, um, who has lost a parent, whether it be through natural causes, whether it be through acts of violence, or from an illness, or what have you. Mourning the loss of a parent is really tough. I'm not a parent myself. I'm not a mother. Um, and so I can't speak to really to losing a child. Um, I feel like losing a parent and losing a child, though they're not one and the same, many people would argue that, they're two very separate circumstances and instances, and you can't even begin to categorize them in the same way. Um, and so I won't attempt to. But what I can say is that if losing a child is anything like losing a parent, um, I know that kind of pain. I know that kind of. I know a similar pain. Um, and so what I really just wanted to really just pick your brains and maybe possibly get a conversation going. Um, you know, perhaps help someone um, to realize and to uh, to kind of rationalize or reason their grief, or their mourning. I know there are a number of people who feel like who approach it in different ways, who feel like, one, there should be a period of time for mourning, and then you get on with the rest of your life. And then there are people who feel like, oh, well, you never ever stop mourning the loss of a loved one because, for one reason or another. Um, and then there are people who go out of their way to avoid mourning and avoid grieving, um, who perhaps throw themselves into their work, or anything to distract them from thinking, anything to distract them from their own personal thoughts, um, which inevitably will wander to their loved one. There's going to be an element in their life that is now void, um, of that person's presence. And when you keep yourself occupied and keep yourself busy and keep your mind off of that person or those individuals, it is very easy to not mourn, to not grieve, to not acknowledge your pain, because you don't even have time to yourself, to your thoughts, to even think about them not being around. Um, and it's not until you come face to face with that reality that, obviously the pain will ensue, and you'll begin to mourn. But yeah, so, on a personal level, my feeling is the grieving process never stops. Um, I lost my father. Um, this past weekend was 11 years um, that my father has since passed, and while it has become over the years easier to speak of him, um, and to remember him in a way that doesn't bring about great pain and sadness. Um, it is still, there are still days when I'm just like, oh man, I really miss my daddy. Like, I really, really miss my daddy. Like, I wish I could talk to him. I wish, I wish this, I wish that. Um, and so, I am obviously in the category of people who think, who believe and feel that, mourning is a continual thing. You do it continually. Do I think that you should spend every waking moment of your life longing for the person who is no longer here? No. Um, because my feeling is that you're here for a reason. Everyone is here for a reason, and everyone here is here on this earth for a set time, and no one among us knows how long we have. And so while it is reasonable and expected for you to be sad and overcome with sadness, um, that someone who you have shared your parts of your life, whether to whatever degree you've shared your life, it's reasonable for you to be sad that they are no longer here to share in future moments of your life, however much longer you have here. Um, because my feeling is that they wouldn't want that. Um, no one would like to think of their loved ones, um, you know, being so wrought with sadness that they're not even living their lives. Um, because then it's almost it's a waste. It's really just a waste. Um, because the fact is, you have life, you continue to live, so that means that there's something more. At the very least, there's something more for you to do here. um, and there are other lives for you to touch and other people for you to influence and things for you to do. um, so I don't think that you should spend all of your time, all the rest of your life, grieving, um, and being depressed about someone not being here anymore. Now, um, this is not in any way to tear down anyone who has found it incredibly, incredibly difficult to move past a loss. Uh, but rather, what I'm saying is your life has so much more purpose than to share it with another individual, even a spouse. Um, because it, and I speak as a person who has not lost a spouse. I'm not widowed, so I honestly cannot speak to that personal experience. But what I can speak to is, having lost my father, like I said, in the same year, the same span of a year, I lost um, my grandmother. Well, actually, both of my grandmothers, and a very close cousin of mine. So, all in the span of a year's time, um, I lost, three very close people to me, and my father's mother, who had passed away um, almost a year after he passed. I did not know her, um, but this is someone who I longed to have a relationship with. Um, so it was very hurtful, and I was very sad at the lost opportunity to have a relationship with her. And I think to a large degree, that's what we mourn. We mourn the lost opportunities to do something with this person, or to make amends, or to resolve some kind of conflict. And I think sometimes, as much as we mourn the loss of that person, we mourn the loss of opportunities, or we mourn missed opportunities. Like, there might have been so many opportunities for you to reach out to this person, or do this with this person before, their passing, whether it be untimely or you saw it coming. um, I think it's important to even acknowledge that could be, that's an element of grief. um, so yeah. But more or less, I'm going to keep this the way it is. Essentially, I'm not going to edit this, as you probably can see by now. Um, but it was something that was on my mind, and it was a topic that I wanted to share, and get a free flow dialogue going. And get your thoughts on it. Feel free to respond either by leaving comments below, um, or with a video response. How do you handle grief? How have you handled losing a loved one? Does time really heal wounds? Some people disagree that it doesn't. It never gets easier to be without that person. Um, and some people, they feel like, okay, well, it's easier to talk about. It's easier to share and laugh about, uh, memories. It's easy to remember them. It gets easier with time to remember them without, feeling so heavy hearted. Um, but hopefully this isn't too long, and please just, I want to hear what you have to say on the topic of grief and mourning of a loved one. Okay. So continue to be well, treat each other well, and just be a blessing. All right. God bless.